Some big news courtesy of the Athletics' Andrew Baggarly. Farhan Zaidi has taken a break from the Giants' managerial search. Why did he do so? Why did he travel thousands of miles away during this break?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so please check us out there, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. And coming up on today's show, I apologize for, I attempted to make today's show a live stream. I was not able to figure it out. And so we had to just go non-live stream today, but I promise you I will figure it out soon and we will get that going hopefully on a regular basis. But just jumping right into the content. Like I said, Farhan Zaidi, big news courtesy of Baggarly. Like, Zaidi's taking a break. The managerial search is the big thing, but he's not doing it right now. Why not? Well, it's not out of laziness. It's not a vacation. Didn't travel to Japan to take a vacation. Farhan Zaidi went to Japan to see in person Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the best pitcher in Japan, I believe. Or at the very least, I mean, that's the thing about the Japanese league there, is that these players more and more are on par with the major league talent, like, and some of them more so. I mean, you look at a Shohei Ohtani, of course, and you're talking about he was the best player in Japan, and then he became the best player in the major leagues as well. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto is just gonna be kind of a major significant player to watch this offseason, and it is so significant that Zaidi went to Osaka, Japan. According to Andrew Baggarly, again, of the Athletic, who says, quote, Zaidi was on hand at the Kyocera Dome in Osaka on Wednesday, 2 days ago, to watch Oryx ace Yoshinobu Yamamoto start for the Buffaloes in Game 1 of their semifinal series against the Shiba Lot Marines. Team and league sources confirmed. Yamamoto didn't have his best game. Gave up 5 runs on 10 hits, striking out 9, though, in 7 innings. The line score did nothing. This is continuing the quote here, by the way. Likely did nothing to damper enthusiasm for the 25-year-old right-hander whose combination of stuff and command is otherworldly. Yamamoto is expected to be posted in a matter of weeks and might be the most coveted player on the free agent market after Shohei Ohtani, end quote. And then later on in the article by Baggarly in The Athletic, he says, quote, according to a source familiar with the negotiations. This is not the right quote. This is about Yamamoto as I move on. So he's talking about Kodai Senga last offseason, and that the Giants, according to sources familiar with negotiations, the Giants did not receive a final opportunity to counter the Mets' offer because Senga was keen on joining a Mets rotation that included Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer when the season began. After trading both future Hall of Fame pitchers, the Mets cannot offer that enticement to Yamamoto now. And this is a quote from Baggarly, quote, and there's a sense within the industry that the Giants won't allow another team to outbid them for Yamamoto's services, end quote. And so the first thing I want to say is this sounds a lot like something we heard last offseason when it came to Aaron Judge. That famous quote that I thought was so stupid because it was like the person who said it didn't even say it right. They said the Giants. It was some guy who was claimed to be familiar with people in the Giants ownership group circle and said that he was just some reporter out of New Jersey who said the Giants won't be underbid for Aaron Judge. And this took off, and I feel like people, even Giants fans, I mean, maybe even especially Giants fans, took that as like people were coming at me on Twitter and just I see these comments all the time. Like they promised that they wouldn't be overbid. But of course, this was just some random dude out of New Jersey who said this. He was a reporter for just some random New Jersey like paper. So first of all, underbid is the wrong word, which was your first red flag that this guy might not know what he's talking about. You want to say overbid. They won't be overbid is what he meant. But coming from Andrew Baggarly is entirely different, is the point that I want to make. Like, this is not the same thing as hearing that from some random New Jersey reporter. We're hearing it from Andrew Baggarly, who doesn't say stuff like this usually. And so to say there's a sense within the industry that the Giants won't allow another team to outbid them for his services. That is strong language. And we're talking about, I mean, I don't know if he's the best current player in Japan, but if you look at the numbers, they're otherworldly. And we discussed this yesterday, and I wasn't entirely positive, but now it's confirmed via this article. He is, in fact, just 25 years old. So I have also discussed when the Giants have gone out and sought to acquire free agent players to big, massive contracts, which they've done just a few times under Farhan Zaidi that we know of, with Bryce Harper and with Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa. And then let's just say the extension to Logan Webb, because we're talking deals longer than 3 years. Say, Bryce Harper, they offered 12 years. Aaron Judge, 9 years. Carlos Correa, 13 years. And with Logan Webb, there was a year of team control already, and then they added 5 more years. So essentially guaranteeing 6 years. And there's a common thread with all of these players, and that is that they're younger. You're not giving, they're not giving longer deals to pitchers or players who are already like in their 30s, right? We just haven't seen that. But a pitcher who Farhan Zaidi literally called like a couple weeks ago to Alex Pavlovich on his podcast, he called Yamamoto one of the best pitchers on the planet. And he said, I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. And then he's there. He literally went to Japan on Wednesday. I mean, I don't know when he went, but he was in attendance on Wednesday for a game in which Yamamoto pitched. And I'm assuming, I don't know if he can meet with him at this point in time, but and this, we're going to talk about this later, but we had Pete Patella in Korea scouting or looking at or paying respect to Jung-hoo Lee because he wasn't even playing. He was just kind of having a last game because he was dealing with an ankle injury. And so to just to be there, I think is kind of the point, and to kind of show the player your interest is genuine because you're the top kind of decision maker in the organization when it comes to baseball operations, and you're there in attendance and you want to hopefully have face-to-face meeting with this guy if you're there. I don't know if that's allowed, but it's definitely interesting. And that quote about there's a sense in the industry that they won't allow another team to outbid them here. They know they need to do something, right? They need to get better on the field because what we've seen the last 2 years isn't good enough, but also they know that they're losing fan interest. And also Farhan Zaidi knows that his job's on the line and he can't afford to have another season like the last 2. And so it's going to be a fascinating offseason. The managerial search is fascinating, but so is this. And it's just a pause because they're kind of waiting on some other external candidates who are not yet available to interview for a couple of various reasons. But also in this report by Baggarly, a juicy nugget that the Giants are in fact interested in Bob Melvin to potentially be their manager next year. So we will get into that reporting in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. There is so much uncertainty in the world today. We just lived through an insane pandemic, first of all. And it should have taught us that it's really important to be prepared. We've got unrest in the Middle East, fires in Hawaii, hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida, the threat of earthquakes always looming in the Bay Area, and these can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. I picked up a Jace case myself. I'm about to travel internationally, and the peace of mind of having these antibiotics in case something comes up, in case the unexpected comes up and I'm in a foreign country, I have them on hand, and you can always communicate with a doctor directly through Jace Medical. And so go to jacemedical.com right now and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. All right, here we go. We are going to get into this other report. Andrew Baggarly has the goods. Like, he's just kind of, we need this. We need this as Giants fans, getting this kind of content. Hopefully it is you're going to get a new manager this offseason. You're going to get probably a lot of new coaches this offseason. And like I said, they can't just do nothing. They just can't. If they do, I just don't see it. I think they're going to do stuff, like major stuff this offseason. So it's not like a promise, and it just feels different. It's not like, oh, they're set up well to do something. It's more like, well, if they don't do anything, then they're going to be in the same position they were just in, and Farhan Zaidi is going to probably get fired, and why would he want to put himself in that position? So anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day is on Monday. We will be back with the very latest. Maybe we'll try out the live episode thing. I would anticipate there's going to be some fresh news over the weekend in regards to the managerial search and other nuggets as those are trickling out here as we get closer to the World Series. And then 5 days later, they want to have a manager in place by that point. And so it's all coming up soon. Anyway, but this report that the Giants are interested in Bob Melvin is certainly very interesting because at first there was speculation that the Giants would be interested in Melvin and that maybe Bob Melvin would be fired after the Padres had a obviously disappointing season. They did kind of rally to finish just over 500 and ahead of the Giants. But that team was so loaded. So many people thought they might be the best team in baseball, or at least the National League, and certainly a threat to win the division, and they didn't come close. They won 80. They were 18 games behind the Dodgers. And so there was speculation that maybe even A.J. Preller, their GM, or their manager, Bob Melvin, would be fired. But the Padres kind of came out and said that Bob Melvin is our manager for next season. And so the thing is, here's what Baggarly says. Let's just stick with Bags because he's got the goods here. Bags says, quote, "It's not a carefully guarded secret within the industry that there's more bubbling underneath the surface. In their comprehensive story in September that detailed the Padres' dysfunction this past season, The Athletic's Dennis Lin and Ken Rosenthal quoted one player who described the relationship between Preller and Melvin as unfixable, quote, unfixable, end quote." And so Melvin is under contract for one more year. And so firing him, if you know there might be interest from other teams in hiring him, wouldn't really make any sense. Like, because this doesn't happen often, but if a manager is under contract, say for another year, that team can trade the manager to another team. So if the Giants are interested in Melvin, the fact that Melvin is under contract with the Padres, they'd have to first get permission. And in order to get permission, they'd probably have to say, yeah, we'll give you something in return if we do hire him, or maybe even give them something just for the opportunity to interview him. And so anyway, that is just a very interesting kind of statement. And I mean, I don't know if Baggarly is citing a source in terms of the Giants' interest in Bob Melvin, or if he's just kind of speculating. But it did sound by the tone of the article, I just can't remember, and I wrote down a bunch of the quotes, and I don't see anything about it, but that it does seem legitimate, and for a good reason. Like, I understand. My initial reaction was that I didn't think it was the best fit. The fact that Melvin struggled with this team in San Diego that was so loaded with superstars, like, why is he the best person to fix the Giants? Well, I can see the argument. Because he is a well-respected veteran manager who, like, immediately commands respect by players, and could, he has the authority to, like, push back against the front office. He also has a past relationship with Farhan Zaidi, which I think is important. They worked together in Oakland. When Zaidi was with the Oakland A's, Bob Melvin was there for some of that time, and Bob Melvin had a lot of success in Oakland, and his career record is very, very good. And so, and also being the manager of the A's, he's well familiar with kind of incorporating, like, somebody said to me, I think it was on Twitter, may have been elsewhere, but that, like, if Giants fans don't like platoons, then they're not going to like Bob Melvin. And that's true to an extent, because in Oakland they platoon as well, and in San Diego they had their platoons as well. But like I always say, it's platoon players who get platooned. If the front office gives you platoon players, a good manager uses them in a platoon. One of the main issues with the Giants is they don't have enough kind of impact players who are not platoon players. But that doesn't mean, like, if you have Jock Peterson, you're a good manager if you just let him play every day. I would say that makes you a bad manager. And no manager in the game would treat him that way if they were in their right mind, really. If it doesn't take a genius. You can just watch a random Jock Peterson at bat against a lefty. Yeah, he'll get a hit sometimes, but he does not look comfortable ever against a left-handed pitcher. And so anyway, that's not to say, oh no, Bob Melvin is just going to be another Gabe Kapler. He's very different, and he has that instantly kind of commands the respect, and there wouldn't just be this uneasy feeling that I think Gabe Kapler gave off to a lot of fans and maybe even some players. And also, there's this other angle to it that, once again, our savior Andrew Baggarly mentioned in this piece, talking about Melvin's basically close relationships with players out of Asia. Like, I guess he was managing the Mariners when Ichiro was there. I didn't actually even know that. I didn't realize he was managing the Mariners back then. I was pretty young, but he also, in San Diego, has had a good relationship with Yu Darvish and a good relationship with Ha-Sung Kim. And, Kim was the best player coming out of Korea, as is Jung-hoo Lee, a player the Giants are interested in. And Yamamoto, the best player coming out of Japan, or at least this offseason. And maybe like was mentioned earlier, the second best free agent outside of Shohei Ohtani, who's also, by the way, from Japan. This connection with Melvin gets all the more interesting. So we will explore that angle in a little bit more detail and why it could give him an edge, but who the other external candidates are and whether the Giants are likely to go internal or external with this managerial hire. We'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Sleeper. The MLB playoffs are in full swing. I just witnessed a great game between the Rangers and the Astros, Game 5. Man, that was quite a game. But the clock is ticking on your chance to win up to 100 times your money because we're getting close to the World Series here. And you're going to get 100 up to 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is right now, like in this very moment. These games are incredible. The talent level is off the charts. And what you can do is just pick a game. There's only 2 games going on right now. And scroll through, pick any player that you like, and simply select more or less on your favorite baseball stats, like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more, for up to a 100 times payout on Sleeper. If you get your picks right, you could win big. One thing that I love about the app is that entries can be made in under a minute. It's just super quick and easy. You just kind of scroll through. It's really like elegant and simple to look at. The design is really good, and it's really, really simple and really, really fun. And if you use promo code LOCKEDON, you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. All right, here we go. We are going to discuss this other angle with Bob Melvin, this recruiting angle, which Farhan Zaidi has talked about as a top priority when searching for a new manager. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, everydayers on Monday, the latest on the managerial search and any other news and notes that come out over the weekend. I do anticipate that, and perhaps I will figure out the live streaming thing, so just be on the lookout for that as well. Certainly within the next week, I would imagine that I am able to figure that out. So this angle of Melvin being a good recruiter. So Jung-hoo Lee out of Korea, totally different, obviously, situation than Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And what Baggarly says, quote, according to a source familiar with the Korean market, Lee will be motivated to sign with a team that will commit to using him in an everyday role and exhibit the patience to let him work through potential slumps. And so on first reading, that might sound like not the Giants, because I think everybody assumes every player that they ever have is going to be a platoon player. But the point that Baggarly makes regarding Bob Melvin is that think about Ha-Sung Kim. What I remember about Ha-Sung Kim is that in his first season over here from Korea, where he was the league's best player there, he really struggled. He really struggled in his first season here. But the last 2 years under Bob Melvin, I'm not saying that Ha-Sung Kim's development and improvement is just like the result of Bob Melvin, but what I am saying, and what Baggarly points out correctly, is that Melvin let him be an everyday player, especially this year. And, if you look at the platoon splits, he's been much better against lefties, but he's been solid against righties. And so, I don't know, it's kind of like, duh, you play this guy every day because his defense is so good. And I've said this a million times, like part of being a platoon player means probably that you're not the best defensive player, because that's why guys like Brandon Crawford has generally avoided being platooned. It's when if you're providing like really good defensive value at a premium position, even if you're weaker against a certain handedness of pitcher, they still that's how you be an everyday player. That's one way to be an everyday player is what I mean. And so for Ha-Sung Kim, he's an incredible defensive player. And so even if he's not as good against right-handed pitching as he is against left, it still totally makes sense to have him be an everyday player, given that he's such a difference maker with the glove, no matter what. We're not talking about offense. And so for Jung-hoo Lee, though, it may be a similar situation. I haven't scouted him extensively, but I do know that he's a center fielder with multiple equivalents of the Gold Glove Award to his name in Korea. I think he's a left-handed hitter purely, but if you're that good defensively, which, by the way, the Giants and Farhan Zaidi in this end-of-season presser talked about improving the outfield defense, then if he truly is a really good defensive center fielder, then, I don't know, Bob Melvin just having a relationship with Ha-Sung Kim, and Ha-Sung Kim probably having some kind of a relationship with Jung-hoo Lee, and maybe you hire Bob Melvin, and then Ha-Sung Kim can, if Lee is considering the Giants, Kim can give a ringing endorsement of Bob Melvin. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the idea there. So, I don't know. The fact is the managerial search remains up in the air. The Giants have interviewed, according to Baggarly, 3 internal candidates. Kai Correa, and others have reported this as well. Bench coach Kai Correa, third base coach Mark Hallberg, and assistant coach Alyssa Nakin. And then he says, while also continuing to consider longtime coach and special advisor Ron Wotus. So that just sounds like what does that mean? He hasn't interviewed, but they're continuing to consider him. I've said I don't think Correa gets it. I don't think Nakin gets it. I don't think Wotus gets it. I really don't think Hallberg gets it either. And then Baggarly does continue to say, quote, but the expectation continues to be that the Giants will favor an external candidate who can bring a fresh and independent perspective. Former MLB catcher and current Seattle Mariners coach Stephen Vogt is scheduled to interview this week, as the Chronicle first reported. So that's a little weird because this article came out on Thursday. So I guess that meant, I thought that it had happened last week. Maybe it was either yesterday or today. But Baggarly continues, quote, the Giants continued to wait on 2 other prominent potential candidates. Donnie Ecker, who served as the Giants hitting coach in 2010 and 11, will not be available to interview with other clubs until the Texas Rangers conclude their season. Ecker is in Ecker is in his second season as the Rangers offensive coordinator. I will add, he's not just the offensive coordinator, he's also the bench coach. Baggarly continues, quote, and could be a candidate to fill the Mets managerial vacancy. But I would say Craig Counsell, if he doesn't renew with the Brewers, is likely to probably to be that guy for me, maybe. And if it's not, then Counsell should be a candidate with the Giants. And then that's when Baggarly says, then there is the potential candidate looming over everything, San Diego Padres manager Bob Melvin. So needless to say, none of this is boring. We've got an interesting and fascinating and fun offseason ahead with the Giants. Just searching for a new manager is always an exciting time. It's like in a way, it's like bad because your organization, the Giants haven't fired a manager in forever. It has been, I don't remember when it was, but it was before the turn of the century. Somebody tell me what, I did read it somewhere, but none of these guys were fired. They all played out their contracts, like Dusty Baker, Felipe Alou, obviously Bruce Bochy with retiring, and then Gabe Kapler comes along, and he's the first to be fired in a very long time. And so this is kind of a not unprecedented, but unprecedented in quite a while situation for the San Francisco Giants to be in. And I think a lot of fans weren't too happy with Kapler. And so in a way, it's like an exciting time because you hope that they get this right. And it's really important that they get this right. And so I don't know what the right choice is. I've done an episode called like a vote for Vogt. I love Stephen Vogt. I don't know though if they want to go with someone who's totally inexperienced in terms of He's never managed before. Donnie Ecker, super intriguing. To me, the three guys I think who stand out probably to me the most are, I mean, if Craig Counsell's available, I would add him to the list. But Donnie Ecker, given how good of a offensive help he seems to be anywhere he goes. So Donnie Ecker and Stephen Vogt, because he's just such an amazing people person, but I don't know about the managerial skill and like the coaches he would hire. I'm not sure. I think maybe that makes him a weaker candidate, even though I like him so much. And then Bob Melvin is kind of a dark horse and very different in that he has decades of experience being a major league manager and strong Bay Area ties. The dude went to Menlo Atherton High School, which, by the way, so did I. So local guy. I mean, he and I literally went to the same high school. So it's going to be fascinating, and we will be there to cover it every step of the way. And it should be resolved. Like, I'm always looking at this, but by the World Series within 2 weeks, like we may be about at a resolution here. So then free agency begins. We get opt-out decisions have to be made within a few days of the World Series ending. So we'll find out about, is Conforto coming back? Is Manaea coming back? All that. And then free agency starts. And then people get posted like Yamamoto. And then there's a deadline for that to be worked out for them to sign with somebody. So it's all going to happen. And we're going to be there every step of the way to cover it. So thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday, the latest. And also maybe working out the live stream thing. And just stay tuned. Come back. There's always going to be trickles of news and you won't want to miss it. So I look forward to seeing you then. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thanks in advance. And thank you so much to everyone who's done so already. Have a great weekend. I cannot wait to be with you again on Monday. I can't wait to know what it is I'm going to tell you on Monday or speak with you about on Monday. So thanks again for listening. You are now Locked on Giants.